So is solar actually worth it in the UK in 2026? I had my own system installed last November, a 9.1 kilowatt peak array with 19 kilowatt hours of battery storage. I have 9 panels on the front roof facing roughly west and the remaining 11 on the rear facing east. And I live in the north of England and have some tree shading. All of these factors reduce my overall generation, but it's still financially worthwhile. In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything. The real costs, how much you can actually save, what batteries do to the equation, time of use tariffs, electric vehicle charging, and I'll give you my honest personal verdict at the end. Let's get into it. Let's start with the big picture. According to DESNZ data, the cost of solar installations has dropped by more than 70% over the last decade. More recently, that trend is continuing, especially for hybrid systems that combine solar panels with battery storage. To put some real numbers on it, the median cost for a 4 kilowatt residential system in the UK right now sits at around £7,500. A 9 kilowatt system like mine, with 19 kilowatt hours of battery storage, will typically land somewhere between £15,000 and £22,000, depending on your installer, roof complexity, and battery choice. For comparison, my total system cost was £13,000. Now, the other side of that coin is what electricity actually costs you. This is where things get really interesting. Ofgem's price cap for Q1 2026 sits around 27 pence per kilowatt hour, with a standing charge of around 55 pence. From April, that actually drops slightly to around 24 pence per kilowatt hour, largely because the government is stripping out some of the green levies and moving them into general taxation. That brings the typical annual bill down to around £1,641. But here's the thing, look at the longer trend. 5 years ago, the average household electricity bill was just over £1,000. Now it's above £1,750. That 60% rise is exactly why solar is a very different proposition now compared to 2019. So, how much does a solar system actually generate, and how much of that can you realistically use? A south-facing 4 kilowatt system in the UK will typically produce around 3,400 kilowatt hours per year. That sounds great, but here's the catch. If you're out of the house all day, you might only self-consume 30 to 40% of what you generate. The rest gets exported to the grid at a fraction of what you would save by using it yourself. If you're predominantly at home during the day though, that self-consumption rate can jump to 50, 60, even 70%. Every unit you use is worth around 28 pence compared to what you export, which can range from 4 to 15 pence depending on your tariff. So the difference is enormous. My own system will generate more than I am able to use during the average day, which means export is a positive factor. But in winter, the priority flips completely. It's all about maximising every unit. Now let's talk about batteries, because in 2026, this is where the real magic happens. A 10 kilowatt home battery system that would have cost £9,000 to £12,000 back in 2014 now costs somewhere between £4,000 and £6,000. That's a reduction of roughly 60% in real terms, and the technology has dramatically improved in that same period. What does a battery actually do for your system? It lets you store surplus solar generation and use it in the evening, overnight, or on cloudy days, instead of being forced to export generated solar at cheap rates and pulling from the grid at expensive peak times. For a typical household, a well-sized battery can push your self-consumption rate up from 35 to 70% or higher. That's the difference between a system that's nice to have and a system that is truly transformative. I am on the Good Energy V tariff, which has an off-peak rate of 6.5 pence from midnight till 5 AM, which is when I charge my batteries and then self-consume during the day, either from the battery or solar. It's very rare, even in the winter, when I need to pull from the grid at peak times. And then there's EV charging, which I think is genuinely one of the most underrated parts of going solar. The average UK driver spends somewhere between £100 and £150 a month on petrol or diesel. With a home solar and battery setup, you can charge your car almost entirely from free generation during the day, or from cheap overnight grid energy if you're on a time of use tariff. The savings on fuel alone can cut years off your system payback, especially if you have two drivers or a high mileage household. I got a car charger installed with my solar system, even though I do not currently have an EV, as it gives me flexibility in the future, and the cost was significantly less than if I had it installed at a later date. Let me walk you through 3 scenarios because the difference is dramatic. With only solar, you generate during the day, use what you can, and the rest is exported. Paired with a standard variable tariff, you might save £500 to £700 a year. Payback could be 10 to 14 years depending on system size and cost. Add a battery. Now you're storing the surplus solar generation and using it during peak hours. Savings jump. You're looking at £800 to £1,200 a year for a typical 4 to 6 kilowatt system with storage. Payback comes in at 7 to 9 years. Now add a time of use tariff. This is where it gets seriously clever. Tariffs like Octopus Flux, Intelligent Octopus Flux, or Good Energy EV let you charge your battery from the grid overnight at off-peak rates, sometimes as low as 5 to 8 pence per kilowatt, and then either use that energy yourself during the day or export it back at peak rates of up to 30 pence or more between 4 and 7 p.m. My Good Energy export tariff has a rate of 15 pence for every unit exported. Bearing in mind I rarely exhaust my batteries during the day, and I am charging up at less than 7p. That's roughly 8 pence gross profit for every unit exported from my battery, regardless of the time of day. Also, an electric vehicle is not required to qualify for the Good Energy EV tariff, unlike most other time of use tariffs. That's an energy arbitrage play, happening automatically in your own home. And with 19 kilowatt hours of storage, that daily cycle adds up fast. Now let's just quickly touch on why this matters beyond the financial benefits. Every kilowatt hour generated at home is one less drawn from fossil fuel powered stations. For most UK homes, a 4 to 6 kilowatt system offsets over a tonne of carbon dioxide every single year. Scale that across the hundreds of thousands of systems now installed across the country, and that's a meaningful contribution. But there's another layer to it that I think is genuinely fascinating. As more households install batteries, especially ones connected to smart tariffs, they effectively become microgrid participants. They absorb surplus generation overnight when prices are low and release it back during peak demand in the evenings. That smooths out the demand curve and helps the national grid avoid firing up expensive and polluting gas plants. That's a quietly powerful shift happening right now across thousands of homes in the UK, and it's only going to accelerate. So, back to the big question. Is solar worth it in the UK in 2026? Yes, but let me give you the nuanced version. If your roof has reasonable south sun exposure, you're at home during the day, at least some of the time, and you pair your panels with enough battery storage to cover your average daily usage, solar in 2026 is a genuine, strong financial decision. With electricity at 25 to 28 pence a unit and costs continuing to trend upward over time, the case keeps getting stronger year on year. Just look at my own situation. I'll be honest, I've got obstructions, I've got panels on multiple aspects, and yet, based on my projected generation and savings, I estimate that my system is on course to pay for itself within 8 to 9 years. If your roof isn't overly shaded and exposed to the sun for the majority of the day, and you add electric vehicle charging into the mix, that payback window shortens considerably. That said, if you're out of the house all day, you can't export meaningfully, or your roof is heavily shaded, your payback will take longer. But modern solar panel systems will generate reliably for 25 years or more. Even a 10 or 12 year payback still means 15 plus years of free electricity after that point. As energy prices continue to rise and smart tariffs become ever more dynamic, every year that passes only strengthens the case for solar and battery systems. Solar in 2026 is not just about saving money, It's about control, energy, independence, and resilience. If there's a power cut in my area, my system automatically disconnects from the grid and powers the house from battery. No outage, no disruption. I am very unlikely to notice. Now that peace of mind has a value that doesn't show up in a payback calculation. With smart tariffs, reliable batteries, and evolving technology, the early adopters are quietly becoming energy producers, not just consumers. And that shift matters. And honestly, nothing beats watching your system quietly power your home, your car, and your life from the sun. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, please hit like and subscribe and drop a comment below. It genuinely helps the channel grow. I'd love to hear whether you already have solar, are considering it, or what questions you still have. Don't forget. If you would like to sign up to Good Energy, please use the referral code in the video description and we each get £50 and it helps support this channel. Look forward to catching you in the next one.